Hello and welcome to the latest COVID cast. This time we're not looking at anything to do with coronavirus. We've decided to look at the looming issue of Brexit, which is, yes, still happening. With me, I have BBC CEO Steve White, I have Peter Blanc of Aston Lark, and I have Brendan McManus of PIB. Thank you, chaps, for joining.
No problem, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to put the first question Steve's way. Obviously, Brexit is still looming large. What dates do brokers need to be aware of?
I think there's two key dates to have in mind, Sian. The first one is the 30th of June. Government have until that date to decide whether they want to extend the transitional arrangements that currently are in place until the end of the year. All the signals we're getting is that government have no intention of doing that. So the second date to bear in mind is the 31st of December, because in the absence of an extension, we totally leave the EU on that date, and we will have to deal with whatever deal or otherwise is in place for us at that time.
Now, I know, Peter and Brendan, you've done a fair amount of work already to prepare your businesses for Brexit. I don't know if you want to kick off, Brendan. What have you done to get PIB ready?
Well, first of all, we bought a business in Ireland, so we have an EU regulated entity. We distribute to practically all the retail brokers in Ireland via our wholesale operation, CityNet. And so to protect that income, it was important we had an EU regulated broker. Although when we bought the business, we were pretty unclear as to exactly how we were going to use it. But since then, we got permission from the Central Bank of Ireland to open a UK branch of the Irish broker, which we've done. And we've got permission from the CBI to essentially do all the administration for the Irish business in London for a year. And then in the meantime, we've put a project plan in place, which will mean by the end of October, we'll be ready to do all the administration for that business on the island of Ireland for 1st of January renewals next year, if in fact there is a no-deal Brexit. If there's a deal Brexit, then we'll have to see what the deal is. But we're certainly ready for a no-deal Brexit. And if I'm honest, it's not been that hard. We waited for quite a long time to get the right permissions from the CBI, but I felt then they were really clear about what we needed to do, when we needed to do it, and what they would see as good practice. So yeah, we've got a few things to do. You know, we've got to hire some people in Ireland and things like that, but I don't think any of that is so difficult. We're also buying 2 other EU regulated businesses at the moment, so hopefully that will give us some choice in the future about, you know, how we transact business in Europe. But yeah, so far so good. But we haven't done it yet, of course. But we look good to go at the moment if in fact there's a no-deal Brexit.
Well, you have to tell us about those 2 new businesses once you're ready. Peter, was it a similar strategy for Aston Lark?
Yep, exactly the same. We bought a broker in Ireland called Robertson Lowe just about 18 months ago now, and then we bought another broker in Ireland since called Wrights, and we've taken on a new CEO and CFO for Ireland. So we're making Ireland a really significant part of our operation going forward. And like Brendan, we've applied to the CBI and we've now been granted third country branch status. So in our London office, we now have a section of the London office that's technically Aston Lark Europe, and then another section of the London office that's Aston Lark UK. We've already transitioned about 4,000 of our European customers from the UK operation to the European operation, and so we are already up and running on that basis already.
Okay.
So yeah, so we've followed exactly the same path with Brendan, just with 2 different brokers.
Obviously, both PIB and Aston Lark are really sizable brokers. Is it going to be as simple for smaller operators to take similar actions?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there is a I guess we get a little bit of leverage being our size. We can afford to put, you know, good people onto these projects and allocate project managers and spend some management time on it. But also we've got a significant amount of our income in euros. About 12% of our income is in euros. So it's worth, well, we had to do it anyway, didn't we? Let's face it. I guess if you're a very small broker and you're only transacting a a handful of clients in Europe, then maybe you need to partner with somebody who's already got the facilities up and running. I think it's going to be difficult for a very small broker to try and manage that themselves. And I'm not sure the CBI want, hundreds of brokers managing small amounts of business anyway. I think it'd be very difficult to get the compliance right if that were the case.
Steve, what are you advising the smaller brokers that are members of BIBA?
Well, firstly, to fully understand the extent of their EU exposures. How many customers have they got? How much is it worth to you? And then look at the options. I mean, as the guys have said, reverse branching is a complicated, time-consuming and expensive process. Certainly, you need to have a decent-sized book of business to make the time and the cost of doing that worthwhile. So the options for smaller brokers with a small amount of European business is fairly restricted. It's either sell it on to someone that can do it, introduce it to someone that can do it, or if you've only got one or two and it's not worth the effort, unfortunately, you may have to walk away from it. Now, that's not a palatable thing to do, but I don't see that there are many other options. Peter, do you agree?
Yep, I completely agree. And actually, to answer your question, Sian, I mean, if brokers haven't already sorted it out, then it's already too late. So, there's no way you'll get permissions through in time for the end of the year if you go about trying to do what we've done. So it's already too late if that was the solution. Distressingly, I mean, we've talked to lots of brokers that do appear to just be, they're kind of just hoping against hope that, it'll all be all right. The government will, something will happen. There'll be an extension. I think people have got a bit, Brexit blasé. I guess with COVID going on, everyone says, that Brexit thing, there'll be a transition, there'll be an extension, it'll all be okay. And right now, it kind of doesn't feel to me like it will be. I think it will be instead of okay.
Everything's carrying on to the original timetable.
Yeah, I agree with Peter. Although, if there is a deal, then we'll have all wasted a bit of time and money, on preparing for a no deal. But and then the small brokers probably will be okay. I mean, if there is a deal and we can continue trading as we do now, then they'll be okay. But I think you have to kind of plan for the worst and hope for the best, don't you?
Yeah. And looking at the papers we've seen from Treasury, it appears the height of the government's negotiating ambition is to secure existing equivalence provisions. Now, there's no equivalence provisions in our insurance distribution directive. So if they do get a deal on those lines for financial services, it is what you would probably call a no use to us deal. And there certainly doesn't appear to be any appetite, both in the UK level or at European level, to extend equivalence into the IDD, because equivalence is primarily a capital and solvency equivalence rather than a conduct of business equivalence. So the best we can hope for is, I think realistically, is that no use to us deal. The only issue is around timing, and the timing looks like 31st of December, because as we say, it doesn't appear that government have any appetite to extend. So
for the brokers who have left it too late, what are their options? Are they just simply going to have to sell off their EU book?
I mean, they could partner with somebody like Aston, Lark or PIB, to sub-broker it. We could do that, or any one of a number of brokers who've got facilities in place. I guess if they've got a small amount of business and you sub-broker it and you have to split your earnings, then it becomes, probably inefficient to look after that client. But that's a possibility. They could use some of the international broker networks to try and partner that way. There are any number of them. I won't list them all here, but that's another possibility. So there are ways around it. But in actual fact, I think, Steve said that the drop dead date is the 31st of December. I look at it another way. I think the drop dead date is 3 months before then, because that's when you've got to get your renewals out. Yeah. So you have to kind of place your bet at the end of October at the latest, I think. So I know that's only 2 months, but that's, you'll be pushing it then 8 weeks before renewal date to make sure you're fully compliant on the 1st of January in a no deal Brexit. That's what you've got to do. So I know I'm kind of cracking the whip here to make sure that everything is absolutely in place by then, so we don't have any revenue at risk in January.
Okay, Peter, are you doing similar things?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to say we are already up and running with Aston Lark Europe, so we've already transitioned a lot of the business across into our Irish entity already. So, but the one thing we are doing is going around the country, looking for the anomalies, looking for those few cases that have that. Yeah, we know we've got a big book of musical instruments, for example. That's all. Yeah, we know that's European business, so we've dealt with that. But what we're now looking for is what lots of small brokers have got, which is pockets of individual policies and just those weird and wonderfuls which nobody's thinking about. So we're trying to think about them now to make sure that we're ready and sorted by October.
Steve, I think you were going to jump in then. What did you want to say?
I was just going to say, I agree with Brendan. I would be very surprised if there are any European insurers prepared to accept a renewal of the case on the 30th of December if the broker hasn't got his permissions lined up. So you'll start seeing insurers putting lines in the sand that says beyond whatever the date they choose. If you haven't got the European permission, we can't take the business from you.
Yep.
So that in itself will flush some of the stragglers out, I think.
Okay, so for brokers who are watching this now thinking, oh no, I better do something, perhaps they might be galvanised to taking some action, perhaps those guys that Peter mentioned who are just hoping it will all go away miraculously, what would be your message to those people? What's the first thing they should do?
I probably wouldn't leave it any longer to take some action. Speak to somebody who's already got the CBI permissions and taking action to put all the administration in place, or speak to your network partner if you're a member of a network, and try and make sure you don't waste any time between now and the end of October getting things put straight. I would say there's potential complication with Ireland in that the Irish government had originally suggested some fresh legislation around the distribution of insurance in Ireland, which is just this morning I read in the Irish Times that it's going to be delayed because a lot of insurers have said if that legislation is put in place, they'll pull out of Ireland, which would be a catastrophe. Ireland's a difficult enough market anyway, but it kind of has, sort of rung the warning bell for me that Ireland might not ultimately be the right European country for us to be regulated out of. So I think we've got to keep a careful eye on Ireland.
Yeah, slight sense of nervousness. Do you share that nervous feeling after the legislation that's being mooted over there, Peter?
So I mean, so far we're comfortable with where we are. We've got a really great management team over in Ireland, so we're very comfortable with what we've got. We've got lots of acquisition opportunities in Ireland, so we see it as being a really attractive market. But it is worth mentioning that lots of brokers I've talked to seem to be talking about Malta as being a potential last-minute solution. I've got no idea whether that's right or wrong, but that's the only other territory that I've heard people talking about.
Okay, and Steve, you've been looking at this for a long time now. I think you'd be known as the experts. What would be your final word?
I think if brokers understand what they need to do but are sat on their hands waiting, as Brendan quite rightly says, now is the time to get on and act. These dates are most unlikely to change, and if you haven't worked out what you need to do, get on and do it. And as we've discussed on this podcast, there are a number of options for you.
Okay.
I'd also say the website for the Central Bank of Ireland is actually really helpful and it's really clear. I've also found the people themselves in the central bank really helpful. I mean, they've been, not that our own regulator isn't helpful, but they have been, I think, particularly helpful, in ensuring people had everything in place and had clarity. So there's no harm in giving them a call and seeing it and getting some advice from them directly. But certainly their website's really good and very clear.
Okay, great stuff. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this COVID cast. I'm sure there'll be plenty more in the pipeline, so please stay tuned to the Insurance Age and Insurance Post websites. And thank you very much for watching.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.